Say wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead as he scrubbed the old wooden pews of St. Andrew's Church, the scent of polish thick in the air. To anyone watching, he was just another struggling university student, trying to earn some favor from heaven, or perhaps they thought from the priest. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that every sweep of his rag was tied to a promise he had made with God the night his family almost lost everything. If he broke that promise, the consequences wouldn't just affect him, they'd shatter the empire his father had built, the wealth hidden beneath layers of humility and silence. By day, Sei was just another face in the crowd at Lagos State University, quiet, always seated at the back of the lecture hall, dressed in worn-out jeans and faded t-shirts. His course mates whispered behind his back, calling him the church boy. The rich boys jeered, and the campus girls, those who wore designer handbags and flaunted the latest iPhones, barely spared him a second glance. They didn't realize that the luxury brands they worshipped, Eterno and Say Lux, belonged to him. Not his father, not his family, but Sei himself. His signature was on every major contract, his vision behind every sleek design. Yet here he was, sweeping the floors of a modest church after every lecture, as though his fortune didn't exist. Years ago, when his father's conglomerate teetered on the brink of collapse, an orchestrated downfall set in motion by the Bashiru Syndicate, Sei, just 19 at the time, knelt in the quiet shadows of his room and made a desperate vow to God. "Restore my family's fortune," he whispered into the silence, "and I'll serve you in humility for as long as you demand." In secret, he also sought out the syndicate's leader, pleading for mercy and begging them to spare his family's business. They agreed, but at a devastating price. Sei was forced to swear an oath to live in the shadows, never to interfere in his father's businesses or claim any part of his inheritance. If he broke that vow, they warned, everything his family owned would be destroyed, and every life connected to it would be taken. Sei now had two vows he was to live up to. The very next week, the tides shifted. A forgotten patent turned into a billion-naira idea, international investors came knocking, and the family's name was suddenly gold again. But Sei knew the family's golden name wasn't without its price, and he intended to pay every bit of it. The only way he could do it was to disguise himself as a poor boy and attend an average university. That would make serving in humility and hiding easy for him. One evening, after a long lecture on business ethics, Sei headed back to the church as usual, unnoticed and unbothered. Except for today. Today someone followed him. Amara. She was one of the campus elites, the kind of girl who seemed stitched from silk and ambition. Her father was a senator, her perfume smelled of old money, and her eyes burned with curiosity sharper than gossip. "Why do you do this every day, Sei?" Her voice echoed softly through the near-empty church. He froze. No one had ever asked him that question before, not seriously anyway. His mind raced for a simple answer, something vague enough to deflect suspicion. But before he could speak, her eyes landed on something odd. His watch. It wasn't flashy, but to those who knew, it screamed exclusivity, limited edition, worth millions. That watch. Where did you get it? Her voice wavered between disbelief and suspicion. Sei's calm mask almost slipped. "Careless," he scolded himself. "It was a gift," he replied smoothly, carefully placing the rag back on the pew. But Amara wasn't convinced. Who gives a poor church cleaner a gift like that? For the first time, Sei felt the walls of his secret life closing in. Every moment stretched thin, as if the universe itself was daring him to reveal the truth. Sei's heart beat a little faster, but his face remained unreadable, a skill perfected over years of hiding his true identity. "It doesn't matter where the watch came from," he said, his voice low, calm, almost too composed. "Why are you following me, Amara?" Her eyes narrowed like she was reading between every syllable. "You're not who you pretend to be." The air thickened with tension, heavy and suffocating. No one was supposed to notice him, let alone question him. Yet here was Amara, peeling back the edges of the carefully built mask he had worn for so long. "I think you're hiding something," she said, folding her arms, "and I'm going to find out what it is." Before Sei could respond, the old church doors creaked open again. A shadowy figure stepped inside, Father Dominic, the elderly priest who knew Say's family and witnessed his vow 3 years ago. His kind eyes, however, now held something darker. Fear. Say, Father Dominic's voice trembled slightly. We need to talk. Now. Later in the priest's small office, Amara's curiosity burned behind the door, her ear pressed close enough to catch muffled fragments of their conversation. It's happening again, isn't it? Father Dominic's voice was grave. The signs, the threats against your family's business. I've seen the reports. Say's jaw tightened. They're trying to destroy everything we built, but I'll handle it. You're still bound to your vow, the priest warned. If you break it, I won't. Say's voice cut like steel. But I'll protect what's mine, no matter the cost. Those words sent a chill through Amara, who quickly backed away from the door, her mind spinning with questions. What vow? What threat? The next day, rumors flew across campus like wildfire. Did you hear? Say I was seen leaving the priest's office late at night. Maybe he's in some kind of trouble. Trouble? Please, the guy probably sleeps in the church. Broke boys like that always play holy to distract from their failure. But Amara stayed quiet, her thoughts tangled in what she had overheard. Her instincts told her there was more to say than his ragged clothes and quiet demeanor. And that watch, limited edition, only 50 made in the entire world, kept haunting her thoughts. She decided to dig deeper. That evening, as Say returned to the church with his usual quiet determination, Amara was already there, waiting for him in the shadows. But before she could confront him again, 2 men in sharp suits, their faces hard with purpose, stepped out of a sleek black SUV parked across the street. They weren't students. They weren't even from this neighborhood. Say noticed them immediately, his calm demeanor never wavered, but his eyes darkened with recognition. What are they doing here? He muttered under his breath. The taller of the 2 men lit a cigarette, his gaze fixed coldly on Sei. You've been quiet too long, Mr. Adeyemi, he said, voice like gravel. Your family's enemies don't like silence. They prefer negotiations. Amara, hidden behind a pillar, watched in shock. Adeyemi. The name clicked in her brain like a detonating bomb. Sei Adeyemi, the heir to the Adeyemi dynasty. The billion-dollar empire everyone thought was managed from abroad. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the picture they formed was far more dangerous than she had ever expected. Say took a slow, measured step forward. Tell them I haven't broken my vow yet. I'm still playing by the rules. The man smirked. Let's hope you don't run out of time, church boy. With that, the car door slammed and the SUV disappeared into the night, leaving only tire smoke and dread in its wake. Amara's breath hitched as realization dawned. This wasn't just about wealth or secrets. This was something hidden beneath layers of humility, loyalty, and danger. And whether Say liked it or not, she was now tangled in his secret world. The night was too quiet after the SUV vanished into the shadows. Say stood there, motionless, the echo of the stranger's words weighing heavily on him. Let's hope you don't run out of time. Hidden behind the pillar, Amara felt her pulse hammering against her ribs. She had come looking for gossip. Maybe a secret affair or a scholarship scam, not this. This was bigger. Say turned sharply, his eyes scanning the empty street. You can come out now, Amara. His voice was like a knife, sharp, precise, and unexpectedly calm. Her breath caught. He knew? Slowly, cautiously, she stepped out of the shadows, arms crossed like a weak shield. You're not as invisible as you think, he added, the usual calm in his eyes replaced by something colder, something dangerous. What was that about? She asked, trying to mask her fear with curiosity. Who were those men? Say didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past her, stepping into the church's glow, the worn wooden doors creaking behind him. You shouldn't be here, Amara. This isn't your business. It became my business when you lied to everyone on campus. You're Say Adeyemi, aren't you? That made him stop, his shoulders tensed for a heartbeat too long. You don't know what you're talking about. I know enough. Billionaire heir, pretending to be poor, cleaning churches like some desperate saint. What are you running from? A heavy silence followed. Then, without turning around, Sei spoke in a voice low enough that Amara had to lean closer to hear. I made a vow. Any day I break from that promise, my family's empire will fall. Amara blinked, her confidence faltering. You believe that? I don't have the luxury of disbelief. Before she could respond, Sei turned, his face now carved with determination. Listen to me, Amara. Whatever you think you've stumbled into, walk away now. You don't want to be involved. But it was too late for that. The next morning, campus life hummed along like nothing had changed. But for Amara, everything was different. She spent the entire lecture scrolling through articles about the Adeyemi family empire, oil, tech, fashion, and real estate spread across continents. But what caught her attention wasn't their success. It was their enemies. Over the years, rival companies had been plagued by a string of inexplicable disasters, CEO scandals, sudden bankruptcies, even accidents that never made sense. The Adeyemi name remained untouched, like an empire shielded by something unseen. And then there was the news of an old business war, the Bashiru Syndicate, known for toppling powerful families through sabotage and quiet threats. The same men who had approached Sei last night. Later that day, Sei sat alone under the shade of a tree on campus, flipping through a worn notebook that didn't match his hidden wealth. Each page was filled with coded symbols, investment strategies, and beneath it all, prayers. We need to talk, Amara's voice cut through his thoughts like a blade. He didn't look up. I told you to stay away. And I told you I wasn't going to. She sat down opposite him, determination written across her face. You're not the only one with something to lose, Sei. That made him pause. His eyes finally met hers, and for the first time she saw the weight of everything he carried, expectations, fear, and a responsibility too big for someone his age. You're in danger, he said quietly. And if you keep following me, so is your family. Amara leaned closer. Then help me understand why someone would want to destroy the Adeyemi family. Who are those men? What do they want? Sei closed the notebook slowly, his jaw tight with frustration and resignation. They don't just want to destroy us. They want to take everything my family built by breaking my vow. And what happens if you break it? His next words were almost a whisper. Then everything crashes down. Not just my wealth. People will die, Amara. People I care about. Before she could ask more, Sei's phone buzzed. One glance at the screen made his expression turn to stone. Unknown number. A message blinked on the screen. The countdown has begun. You have 72 hours. And just like that, the quiet war Sei had been avoiding wasn't quiet anymore. The message on Sei's phone burned into his mind like a brand. The countdown has begun. You have 72 hours. 72 hours until what? Until his family's empire collapsed, until lives were lost. The weight of the vow pressed harder on his shoulders, and for the first time in years, Sei felt the certainty of control slipping through his fingers. Amara noticed the shift in his expression. His eyes, always calm and unreadable, now flashed with raw fear. What does it mean? She asked, her voice low. Sei stood up so suddenly that the notebook in his lap slid to the ground. It means time's running out. That night, Lagos wasn't its usual vibrant self, not in Sei's eyes. The city lights blurred into smudges of gold as his driver wove through the streets in an unmarked black car. The luxury inside was understated, but beneath every surface was bulletproof glass, silent alarms, and emergency protocols. His destination? A hidden floor of the Adeyemi Towers, his family's private fortress. Only a few knew of its existence. Fewer were allowed access. Inside, 3 men waited for him around a sleek conference table. His uncle, Tunde, the family's cold strategist, Falana, the family's legal shark, and Dara, his childhood friend turned head of security. The Bashiru Syndicate is moving faster than we anticipated, Tunde began without pleasantries. We've traced their assets, shifting through shell companies. Something's coming, and they're being careful to cover their tracks. Sei tossed his phone onto the table, the threatening message displayed for everyone to see. We have 72 hours. Dara's eyes darkened. They're serious this time. They've always been serious, Sei said, But this time, they're not just coming for our money. They're coming for the legacy. Meanwhile, back on campus, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she looked over her shoulder, nothing was there. But the sensation of unseen eyes lingered like a shadow in the corners of her mind. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Stay away from Saye. This isn't your fight." Her stomach twisted. She tried to call back, but the line went dead before the first ring. The next day, Saye didn't show up for lectures. The rumors spread like wildfire across campus. Maybe he finally dropped out. Guess even the church boy couldn't handle the pressure of being broke. But Amara knew better. She marched toward the church, clutching his forgotten notebook, the one with cryptic symbols and prayers written in rushed handwriting. Inside, the church was empty except for Father Dominic, who sat in the front pew, eyes closed in silent meditation. "Father," Amara approached cautiously, "where's Saye?" The old priest opened his eyes slowly, studying her carefully. "You shouldn't be here, child." "I know about his vow," she pressed. "I know he's hiding more than anyone realizes. But I also know he's in danger. And if you care about him, you'll help me find him." Father Dominic sighed deeply, the weight of years visible in his tired eyes. "If Saye trusted you with his secret, then perhaps it's not my place to keep you in the dark." Hours later, Amara found herself standing at the gates of Adeyemi Towers, heart pounding in her chest. Armed guards flanked the entrance, and cameras followed every movement. This isn't just a family business, she realized. It's a fortress. She swallowed her fear and approached the gate. "I need to speak with Saye Adeyemi." The guards didn't react. "Do you have an appointment, ma'am?" "Tell him it's Amara. He'll want to see me." The silence stretched for what felt like hours until a voice crackled through the guard's earpiece. The guard's expression shifted slightly, curiosity, maybe surprise, before the gate slowly opened. "He's expecting you." Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. High-tech security, glass walls, the distant hum of powerful servers. This wasn't the life of a humble church cleaner. In a private room at the top of the tower, Saye stood with his back to her, staring out at the Lagos skyline like a general surveying a battlefield. "You shouldn't have come, Amara," he said without turning around. "And you shouldn't have lied to everyone," she shot back, stepping forward. "I found your notebook. I know about the Bashiru Syndicate." Now he turned, and the calm mask he wore on campus was gone. "You don't know what you're getting into." "Then tell me." For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then finally, he spoke. "They're not just after my family's wealth. They want to break the vow I made, to force me to fall so they can destroy everything my family built." Amara swallowed hard. "What happens if they succeed?" His answer was a whisper, but it cut through the room like thunder. "People will die, Amara, and not even my billions will be able to stop it." The room fell into a tense silence, the weight of the secret war between legacy and destruction now resting between them, and somewhere in the shadows of the city, the countdown continued. 48 hours left. The silence between them stretched thin, heavy with unsaid words and unspoken fears. Saye's eyes lingered on Amara longer than they should have. There was something about her presence, an unexpected warmth cutting through the cold logic that had ruled his life for years. Why does she care so much? Most people would have run by now, terrified of the weight his secret carried. But Amara was still here, stubborn and fearless, digging deeper into his world even as danger closed in around them both. "You should have walked away," he said quietly, his voice low and rough. "You still can." Amara crossed her arms, refusing to back down. "And let you fight this alone? You're risking everything for your family, Saye. Someone needs to risk something for you." The words hit harder than he expected. No one had ever said that to him before. Not his business partners, not his so-called friends, not even family. His entire life, Saye had been the shield, the protector, the one carrying the weight of legacy and promises. But now, someone actually saw him. He looked away, breaking the tension, though the storm inside him only grew stronger. "It's not just about me," he muttered. "If you stay close, they'll come for you too. The Bashiru Syndicate doesn't make idle threats." "Let them come," Amara said without hesitation. "I won't let you carry this alone." Her defiance stirred something deep in him. something dangerously close to admiration, maybe even something more. The door clicked open and Dara entered, his sharp gaze darting between Say and Amara, sensing the subtle shift in the air. "We have a bigger problem," Dara announced, snapping the moment in half. "They've started moving against your offshore accounts. If we don't stop them in the next 24 hours, the entire financial structure will collapse." Say's calm returned instantly, his mind snapping back into strategy mode. "Lock down every vulnerable asset, freeze the transfers, and reroute the funds to our hidden reserves." "Already done. But there's something else." Dara hesitated, a rare show of uncertainty. "They've also started leaking information to the press. Someone's trying to ruin your public reputation before they destroy your wealth." Amara stepped forward, her curiosity sharpened by fear. "What kind of information?" Dara's eyes darkened. "Fabricated scandals, fraud, corruption, money laundering, enough to turn public opinion against the Adeyemi name overnight." For a split second, Say faltered. His vow had kept his family protected from financial ruin, but it couldn't shield them from whispers and lies. The Bashiru Syndicate wasn't just coming for his money. They wanted to break his spirit, to ruin everything his family stood for. "Let them leak whatever they want," Say said, voice cold and unflinching. "The truth will bury their lies. But we need proof, something to tie the Syndicate to this attack." "And how do you plan on getting that?" Amara asked cautiously. Say turned to face her, and for the first time she saw something beneath his controlled exterior, a flicker of vulnerability. "By drawing them out. If they want me to break, then I'll give them a reason to come after me personally." Later that night, as Say sat alone in his office, the tension refused to leave him. The city lights outside blurred into a mess of gold and blue, but all he could think about was Amara, her stubbornness, her fearlessness, the fire in her eyes every time she challenged him. Why does she care so much? Why do I care that she does? A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Amara. "You're still awake," she said, stepping in without waiting for permission. "Couldn't sleep," Say admitted, a rare crack in his armor. She hesitated, then walked closer, her voice softer now. "You don't always have to do this alone, you know." For a heartbeat too long, they stood there, close enough for him to notice the faint smell of her perfume, subtle but comforting. Close enough for the unspoken tension between them to tighten like a drawn bowstring. "You don't understand," Say murmured, his voice barely audible. "If anything happens to you because of me, I can take care of myself," she cut in, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. "But who's going to take care of you?" The contact was brief, but it was enough. Say's resolve wavered just for a second. "You're reckless," he said, though there was no anger in his voice, only something warmer. "And you're impossible," she replied, a small defiant smile on her lips. For the first time in days, Say almost smiled back, but the moment shattered when his phone vibrated violently against the desk. Another message. 24 hours left. You're running out of time, church boy." The countdown was almost over, and now Amara was more than just an observer. She was part of the fight. And Say wasn't sure if that terrified him more than the Syndicate's threats. The message on Say's phone might as well have been a ticking bomb in the room. The calm he had fought to maintain shattered in that instant, and the weight of the countdown pressed on him harder than ever. The Bashiru Syndicate was getting bolder, and now, with Amara by his side, the stakes had never felt higher. "They'll come for her too if I don't end this soon." Amara leaned in, reading the message over his shoulder. "They're not backing down." Her voice was steady, but Say could hear the slightest tremor beneath the surface. "What happens when the time runs out?" Say clenched his jaw. "They'll either destroy everything my family built, or force me to break my vow. And if you break it?" He met her eyes, and for a moment the cold, calculated strategist inside him was gone, replaced by something raw, something real. "People I love will die, Amara. The Syndicate made sure of that when they set this trap. It's not just about wealth, it's about power and revenge." The next morning, as the sun rose over Lagos, casting a golden glow over the sprawling city, Say's mind was already moving 5 steps ahead. The Syndicate wanted him scared, reactive, but he wasn't going to play by their rules anymore. In the secure war room at the top of Adeyemi Towers, his team gathered. Dara pulled up files on encrypted screens. Tunda paced the room with furrowed brows, and Amara, unexpectedly part of this elite circle, sat quietly by Say's side, absorbing every detail. "We traced their financial shell companies," Dara began, pulling up a map with red markers scattered across different continents. "They're moving assets faster than we can block them. But there's a pattern. Every transfer leads back to a holding company in Dubai." Say nodded, eyes sharp. "That's where their real headquarters are." "Exactly," Dara confirmed. "If we can intercept their next move, we can expose the entire network." Amara leaned forward, curiosity burning in her gaze. "And what happens if we fail?" "We won't," Say said, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. "We can't." As the hours slipped by, Say found himself stealing glances at Amara more often than he wanted to admit. Every time she challenged him, every time she refused to back down, something inside him shifted. She should have walked away by now, but she hadn't. Instead, she sat beside him, determined to fight a war she barely understood. And that terrified him more than anything the Syndicate could do. Later that evening, as the sky bled into shades of orange and purple, Say took Amara aside, away from the endless screens and constant tension. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, carrying a softness he rarely allowed anyone to hear. "You keep saying that," she replied, folding her arms stubbornly, "but I'm still here. Why does that scare you so much?" Say looked away, struggling to find the words. "Because I can't protect you from what's coming. The closer you are to me, the more danger you're in." Amara stepped closer, her voice softer now. "Maybe I don't need protecting. Maybe I just don't want you to face this alone." For a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. The threats, the countdown, the Syndicate's shadow looming over his family. It was just her, and for the first time in years, Say felt the walls around his heart begin to crack. "Amara," his voice faltered, "if anything happens to you, then we'll face it together," she interrupted, her hand brushing his. The contact was brief but electric. 12 hours left. The next phase of their plan was already in motion. "We're baiting them," Dara explained as the team gathered again. "We'll make it seem like Say's transferring his most valuable assets, everything the Syndicate wants, into a vulnerable offshore account. Once they move in, we trace the signal back to the source." "And if they realize it's a trap?" Amara asked. Say's voice was ice cold again. "Then they'll come for me directly, and that's exactly what I want." The trap was set by midnight, every second stretched thinner as the countdown neared 0. Say sat in his office, the lights dimmed, staring out at the city like a king awaiting battle. Amara stood quietly behind him, her presence steady, comforting. "Why do you care so much?" he asked suddenly, his voice low and vulnerable. "You barely knew me before all this started." Amara hesitated for a moment, then spoke with a sincerity that cut deeper than any threat. "Because you're not the person everyone thinks you are. You're fighting for something bigger than yourself, and no one should have to fight alone." He turned to face her, and for the first time, let the mask slip entirely. "You're not afraid of what's coming, are you?" "I'm afraid of losing you," she whispered. The tension between them snapped tight, their faces inches apart. The air was thick with everything unsaid. Fear, desire, loyalty. But before either of them could close the gap, Dara's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "They've taken the bait. It's happening." 1 hour left. The Syndicate was moving fast now, too fast. Something was wrong. "This isn't right," Dara muttered. "They're not going for the offshore account. They're rerouting the attack straight to the tower's core system." Say's heart stopped. "They're coming here." Alarms blared through Adeyemi Towers. The final battle wasn't going to be fought from behind screens. The Syndicate was done playing games. And now, as armed guards moved into position and Amara refused to leave his side, Say knew one thing for certain. The war was no longer about protecting his family's legacy. It was about protecting her, and he was ready to risk everything. The alarm screamed through Adeyemi Towers, the red emergency lights casting shadows across the cold steel walls. But Say didn't flinch. His pulse slowed instead of quickened, every muscle in his body tightening with the sharp clarity of someone who knew the storm was finally here. This was always how it was going to end. Face to face. Dara's voice crackled through the security comms. We've locked down every entrance, but they're already inside. This isn't just a data breach, Sei. They're here for you. Sei turned to Amara, his expression dangerously calm. You need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the fear she refused to show. I told you, we face this together. Before he could argue, Dara burst into the room, gun holstered at his side, eyes blazing with urgency. They've disabled the cameras on the 15th floor. They're close. We need to move you to the safe room. No, Sei snapped. They want me? They'll find me right here. This isn't bravery, it's suicide, Dara hissed. It's strategy. Sei's voice dropped cold and sharp like glass. I let them in, and when they get too comfortable, we strike back. The tower's power flickered. Shadows danced across the glass walls, stretching long and thin like specters. Sei could feel them getting closer. Amara moved beside him, her hand brushing his, and for a fleeting second, the chaos around them faded. His heart clenched with something far more dangerous than fear. Attachment. I can't lose you, Amara, Sei whispered, voice so low it was almost swallowed by the hum of failing lights. Then you won't, she whispered back, her fingers tightening around his. We end this together. The first shot rang out, a single sharp crack that echoed through the tower like the tolling of a bell. They're inside, Dara growled, pulling out his sidearm. They're coming straight for this floor. Good, Sei muttered, his eyes narrowing with deadly focus. Let them. Suddenly, the door to the office exploded inward in a shower of splinters and smoke. Armed men in black tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised, their faces hidden beneath masks marked with the insignia of the Bashiru Syndicate. A crimson serpent wrapped around a blade. Sei stepped forward before Dara could react. Looking for me? His voice was like ice, steady and unflinching. The leader of the group, a tall, broad-shouldered man with cold, calculating eyes, lowered his weapon slightly. Mr. Adeyemi, we were beginning to think you'd run. You should have stayed in the shadows, Sei replied calmly. Now you're in my house. The man smirked. You're a smart boy. Smart enough to know we don't leave witnesses. That's where you're wrong. Before the man could react, Dara's team burst through the side doors, guns blazing with precision. A firefight erupted, sharp cracks of gunfire, shattered glass, and screams of pain. Sei pulled Amara down behind the heavy conference table, shielding her as bullets tore through the air above them. Stay low, he ordered, his hand instinctively gripping hers. The room was thick with smoke and the scent of gunpowder. Bodies littered the floor, some of the Syndicate's men, some of Sei's. The leader, however, was still standing, a cruel smile stretching across his face as he advanced. You're brave, the man sneered, raising his gun directly at Sei. But bravery doesn't stop a bullet. Sei stared him down, refusing to flinch. You should have stayed hidden, Bashiru. The man froze, his smirk faltering. How do you? I know exactly who you are. And I know your mistake. Sei's voice was deadly calm. You underestimated the one thing you could never control, me. With a flick of his wrist, Sei pressed a hidden switch beneath the table. Instantly, the entire tower's security system roared back to life. Cameras reactivated, alarms screamed, and lockdown doors slammed shut, sealing off every escape route. You're trapped, Sei said, standing up slowly, and everything you just did. The world's already watching. On the massive screen behind him, a live feed showed news outlets streaming footage from inside the tower. Every move, every bullet fired, it was all being broadcast in real time. It's over, Sei finished, his voice like a blade. Your empire ends tonight. Bashiru's men panicked, but their leader wasn't ready to fall quietly. With a roar, he lunged at Sei, gun raised. The shot echoed through the room. For a horrifying second, Sei thought it had hit its mark, but it wasn't him who fell. It was Bashiru. Amara stood behind Sei, hand shaking around the smoking gun Dara had given her earlier. No one touches him, she said, her voice low and unyielding. Sei turned, eyes wide with something dangerously close to admiration and something even closer to love. The danger was over. The Syndicate's reign had crumbled in front of the entire world. But for Sei, the real battle wasn't just about legacy or vows anymore. It was about the woman who refused to leave his side, the one who had risked everything to fight for him. As the dust settled and Dara's team secured the tower, Say turned to Amara, gently taking the gun from her trembling hands. "You saved my life," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You saved mine first," she replied, her breath shaky but steady. For a moment, there were no threats, no enemies, just the two of them standing in the wreckage of a war neither of them should have had to fight alone. And then, without hesitation, Say closed the distance between them, pulling her into a fierce, desperate kiss, one that spoke of fear, survival, and something neither of them dared admit until now. This was just the beginning. The sun rose over Lagos the next day, but the city didn't wake up to its usual rhythm. It woke up to Say Adeyemi's name, splashed across every news outlet, trending across social media, and whispered on every street corner. The same classmates who had once laughed at him, called him church boy or the broke cleaner, were now glued to their screens, jaws slack with disbelief. At Lagos State University, the air was thick with regret. Jide, the loudest of the rich boys who had mocked Say the most, scrolled through the article with a pale face, the headlines hitting him like punches. "Wait, that's the Say?" He looked up at his friends, disbelief painted across his face. "The same guy One of his friends buried his face in his hands. "Bro, we called him broke. We called Say Adeyemi broke." Across the campus, the same girls who had once dismissed Say without a second glance, the same ones who had chased after wealthy heirs of far lesser dynasties, now sat in stunned silence. Amara's friend, Tolu, couldn't believe what she was reading. Amara was with him the whole time. She knew? Later that day, Say returned to campus, not hidden behind worn-out jeans and a quiet demeanor, but standing tall in a sharp, custom-tailored suit. The air shifted the moment he stepped out of his sleek black car. All eyes turned toward him. The whispers followed immediately. "That's him. The billionaire. I heard he fought armed men in his own tower. I can't believe we thought he was just some poor church boy." But Say didn't pay attention to the noise. His eyes scanned the familiar faces, the same classmates who had mocked him, and landed on Amara, who waited by the lecture hall steps, her smile small but proud. As he approached, the crowd parted for him like the Red Sea, people too shocked or too ashamed to speak. Until Jide stepped forward. "Say, Mr. Adeyemi." His voice cracked under the weight of his guilt. "Listen, man, about everything from before. We didn't know. I didn't know." Say stopped and raised an eyebrow, his face unreadable. "Didn't know what? That I wasn't worth respect unless I had wealth attached to my name?" Jide's face turned crimson. I'm sorry, bro. Really. We were just stupid." "No," Say said coolly. "You were honest about who you are. You only respect power, not people." The silence that followed was deafening. Jide's apology, weak and hollow, hung in the air as Say turned his attention back to Amara. "You're late for class," she teased, arms crossed but eyes warm with something more than admiration now, something deeper. "Figured I'd make an entrance today," Say replied, the smallest of smiles tugging at the corner of his lips. The crowd watched, breathless, as Say took her hand, casual and confident, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. In the lecture hall, the professor paused mid-sentence when Say entered, his footsteps echoing off the marble floor. "Mr. Adeyemi," the professor stammered, clearing his throat. "I didn't expect to see you here after, well, everything." Say took his usual seat in the back, the same spot where he'd been ignored for years. "I made a promise to finish what I started," he said simply. "And I keep my promises." By the end of the day, everyone on campus knew the truth. The church boy was the heir to one of Nigeria's most powerful empires. The brands they wore, Eterno, Say Lux, Orion Tech, weren't just expensive names, they were his. And the girl who had stood by him through it all, she wasn't just a bystander anymore, she was his partner. That night, as Say stood on the balcony of Adeyemi Towers, the city lights stretching endlessly before him, Amara joined him, resting a hand lightly on his arm. "They finally know who you are," she whispered. Say's gaze remained on the horizon, but his voice was softer now. "Yeah, but you saw me before they did. She turned him toward her, eyes shining with the same fire that had drawn him in from the start. "And I'll keep seeing you, no matter how much money you have." Without hesitation, Say leaned in, their lips meeting not as a billionaire and a curious classmate, but as two people who had fought side by side in a war no one else had seen coming. And for the first time, Say wasn't just fighting for his family's legacy. He was about to build a future. With her, or so he thought. One evening, after a long day of lectures and business meetings, Say found himself standing outside Amara's modest apartment building. His chest was tight with unease, his thoughts racing faster than his heart. He wanted to surprise her. Just as he raised his hand to knock, voices drifted through the slightly ajar door, low, urgent, and terrifyingly familiar. "We warned you, Amara," a cold, gravelly voice murmured. Say's stomach dropped. That voice, it was Kola Bashiru, the younger brother of the man who had nearly destroyed his family's empire. "I've handled it," Amara's voice shot back, calm and composed, too calm. "He trusts me now. I'm closer to him than anyone else." The words hit Say like a blade through the ribs. "He trusts me now." "Good," Kola said. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do." Say stumbled back, his heart pounding in disbelief. His hands trembled as memories of her unwavering loyalty, her soft reassurances, and every shared glance came crashing down around him like shattered glass. "So, after everything, Amara is part of the Bashiru Syndicate,"